Hello, this is DJ Fracture from Astrophonica, and I'm here with Luke TV to give you my top 5 studio tips that I use every single time I'm writing a piece of music, and hopefully you guys can use too to improve your skills. Okay, so tip number 5, very important. Understand your technology. Know what it is you're working with, whether it be software, hardware, instruments, whatever it is. Play with them, push them to the limits, see what you can do, see what you can't do. Once you've got that, then you kind of know your palette almost like a painter. You know what you've got, you know what you can do. That's tip number 5. Okay, tip number 4, very important and technical one, is to use low and high cuts on all the elements within your track. And what I mean by that is to use an EQ or a filter to filter out all the frequencies that aren't necessary in that particular sound. The reason why you want to do that is because doing a mix down is kind of like you've got a particular frequency spectrum and you need to fit all your sounds within that frequency spectrum. They need to sit on their own space. So what I'll show you here quickly is a classic scenario, a bass drum and a bass line. Or actually this is a full beat. But if we look at the beat in my Logic Audio EQ with the analyzer in it, we can see that we're peaking here around about 70 Hertz. And if we also look at my bass line, we can see we're peaking here a little bit lower, around about 50 Hertz. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and add a low cut and bring that right up to probably actually about 70 or 80 Hertz. Which sounds quite high, but that way you've then got your kick drum sitting here, and then underneath it you've got your bass line sitting, and that allowed you to get a louder mix and much more definition between the two sounds. Okay, DJ Fracture's tip number 3. As much as my last tip was about technical and kind of sticking to a particular rule, this tip number 3 is the complete opposite to that. Don't stick to any rules. Okay, particularly in drum and bass. Drum and bass is where it is today through the misuse of equipment. And that's what I constantly do in my music. For instance, the Mackie mixing desk here was never meant to be overdriven, okay? It was never meant, the gain stage here was never meant to be turned up. But when you do turn it up, beyond the way you should do, something magical happens and you get a load of distortion and you put a bass line through it and it sounds absolutely amazing. So tip number 3 is basically mess around with your equipment, push it to its limits, and don't stick to any rules. Okay, tip number 2. This time, very, very, very important tip, is to take breaks regularly. Because what might often happen is, you'll be sitting there, you'll be working on a little drum loop, you'll be sitting there for hours and hours and hours, EQing the snare drum, doing what you've got to do. And if you don't take breaks, your vision becomes completely clouded and you kind of can't hear what you're listening to anymore. And you're more likely to then make mistakes and more likely to come up with something that doesn't have as much impact and as much vibe to it. So what I suggest is go for a walk, go for a cup of tea, go outside in your garden if it's a nice day, whatever it is, give your ears a rest, give your brain a rest, forget what it is, what you're doing, and then when you come back, you're more likely to be like, actually that bit's a bit rubbish, I'm going to take that out. So tip number 2, take breaks. Okay, here we are. DJ Fracture's number 1 tip when making music in the studio. Number 1 tip is do not get too bogged down in the technical side of it. Have fun, get a vibe going. That's the most important thing. The technical side can come afterwards, because the main thing about music is it's meant to be fun and it's meant to make other people have fun. And that's what you want to get across. So don't worry about sitting there EQing a snare drum for 1,000 hours. The most important thing is to get a good vibe going and a good kind of groove and just have fun. Stand up while you're doing it. Stand up in the studio. That's my bonus tip. This is DJ Fracture and you're watching Loop TV.